The Way We Were, where we unearth a thread of continuity in cinema, music, art, culture, society, and politics to discover the connection to each other.
So, what exactly happened in 2024 in the entertainment space? This is Reema, and you're listening to the very last edition of The Way We Were in 2024. So, back to the question, what happened this year in cinema? Well, Vikrant Massey anointed himself as a centrist, Akshay Kumar gave another flop, and Pushpa 2, The Rule, created a riot at the box office by earning over 1,450 crores worldwide in just 14 days. Well, even though it was unapologetically driven by testosterone and became the highest grossing Indian film of the year, another film called Stree 2 grossed over 874.58 crores worldwide. But beyond the box office numbers of these films, something else unfolded in Indian cinema this year. A 30-something filmmaker, a woman, reminded the world that India had more to offer than just action heroes throwing punches in slow motion and frenetic color-saturated dance sequences. Payal Kapadia's All We Imagine as Light became the first film to compete in the main competition at Cannes since 1994 and made history by winning the Grand Prix. It was named the New York Times Best Movie of 2024, won the award for Best International Feature at Gotham Awards, won the Best International Film Award at the New York Film Critics Circle, was honored as the best non-English film by the Los Angeles Film Critics Association, and was named one of the top 5 international films by the National Board of Review. Payal also became the first Indian woman to be nominated for 2 Golden Globes, including for Best Director and Best Film in a language other than English. All We Imagine as Light was also selected as the best film of the year by the prestigious Sight and Sound magazine. Well, if Payal was a mainstream maker with an active PR machinery, her success would have made as many waves in India as it did globally. But we did not even deem it fit to send her film to the Oscars. In fact, filmmaker Janu Barua, who headed an all-male 13-member selection jury, said that Payal's film was subpar, technically. Payal graciously accepted this submission and also lauded the selection of Laapataa Ladies as India's Oscar submission and said, I just think it's really great that there are 2 films from India that are doing this well, and they are both by women. That, in a nutshell, said something about a subterranean shift that happened in Indian cinema this year. 2024 was, if you believe it or not, the year of gentlewomen, when the triumphs of Kapadia and Kiran created space for a cinema without male aggression. And even blockbusters like Stree 2 and Kalki had women at the heart of their narratives. Laapataa Ladies, in fact, garnered a record 13.8 million views on Netflix and toppled Animal in viewership ratings. What set All We Imagine as Light and Laapataa Ladies apart, I think, was an emphasis on kindness and humanism at a time when performative cruelty and violence are rampant in cinema, OTT shows, and politics around the world. In fact, when I went to watch All We Imagine as Light in a theatre, the audience was first treated to a showcase of current films, including the latest Singham saga, Sabarmati Express, and a couple of Hollywood blockbusters. Then came the trailer of Pushpa 2, and the boys sitting next to me let out loud cheers and whistles. And that is why what followed next took me by surprise. As soon as Cannes Grand Prix flashed on the screen, a loud happy roar rose from the back of the theatre. The names of Payal Kapadia and Kani Kusruti were greeted with proud clapping, and there was also clapping at the end of the film, proving that there is a small space left still for cinema that is not hyper-masculine and violent. On the surface, Laapataa Ladies and All We Imagine as Light have something in common. 3 invisibilized women, one a bit shy and reticent, the other braver, and Chaya Kadam rounding off conversations with delicious observations. However, that's where the similarity ends. This is not a film for you if you're looking for multiple cinematic punchlines, and yes, I'm talking about All We Imagine as Light. Though there is a punchline when an about to be displaced Parvati, played by Chaya Kadam, throws a stone at something, and then we see the usually sedate Prabha, played by Kani Kusruti, following her, and then they giggle at the audacity of having punched holes in a real estate hoarding that says class is a privilege only for the privileged. This ties in perfectly with the voice at the beginning of the film, which conveys that no matter how hard life gets, the invisible Mumbaikar is not allowed to be angry. And so the women laugh, even though Parvati has lost her home of over 2 decades because she doesn't have the requisite kagas. It's almost as if I wasn't here, she tells Prabha, the overextended nurse whose tired, joyless eyes open the film. Prabha then says, "We'll remember, we'll miss you." This and many other kindnesses in the film present a counterpoint to the monotonous aggression we now see in cinema and around us. The kindness that's extended to a pregnant cat, the kindness of a man who writes poetry and makes sweets for Prabha, the kindness of Prabha, who's willing to fight Parvati's battles for her and revives a stranger who had almost drowned in the sea. She even covers the rent for her flatmate, Anu, played by Divya Prabha, and lends a shoulder to her when the young woman dozes off in the train. Unlike Prabha, Anu escapes the confines of her life, often via text messages to her lover Shiaz, who is, yes, a Muslim, and with whom she shares meals, window shopping trips, train rides, and stolen kisses in a city where privacy is unaffordable. She even buys a burqa for a tryst with him, a hugely significant moment, especially at a time when many recent films have used the burqa as a provocative device. But for these two young people, love feels natural, even though both are afraid of what the future will bring. Payal also reminds us repeatedly that a woman's body on film is not just meant to titillate. There are 2 stark moments when we see Prabha's body without any sheen of romanticism. The first, when she's mopping up the floor and sees the rice cooker her husband has sent her from Germany. She cradles it with her legs, almost imbuing it with a warmth that she hasn't experienced in her marital life. And the second, when she is relieving herself in a forest. This moment shocks us with its frankness but dares us to sexualize her. Anu, in another candid moment, undresses before the mirror after she has been slut-shamed by Prabha. It's a defined moment. Not a defining, but defiant moment, and also something that she possibly does unthinkingly every day. It is a fleeting moment without undue emphasis, but forces us to see her as a woman, not just her body parts. Her love for Shiaz too is about agency and not politics, though maybe both may mean the same thing today. And there's so much to this film, so many layers that it's hard to just talk about it in one podcast. You know, there is also this one moment where something like magic realism releases Prabha from her non-existent marriage. And many people may not be able to understand or relate to what happens here in this particular scene. But then I think the film's point is this, that when life doesn't offer us closure or epiphanies, perhaps we must construct them ourselves to set ourselves free. This is hence not a film that tells you a story. It's a film where human existence itself is a story. The final scene where the 3 women sit in the fading dusk with a diffident but happy Shiaz and watch the sea while a beach shack twinkles with light behind them is a reminder that we don't need much to be happy. We just need eyes to see what remains still for us to cherish and protect, and to discover that all of us are promised at least a few moments in our lives when we won't have to imagine light in the gathering gloom, when there will be light, when it will not be distant but around us, perhaps even within us.
The Way We Were. where we unearth a thread of continuity in cinema, music, art, culture, society, and politics to discover the connection to each other.
Kiran Rao's Laapataa Ladies too has the Rishikesh Mukherjee's brand of humanism and harks back to a more innocent time in India. Payal Kapadia's technique and her cinema may be more stark, but it has the same humanism as, the kind of humanism that has gone missing from cinema. So, Laapataa Ladies takes us back to a time when heroes were gentlemen, spontaneous bonds were forged between the haves and the have-nots, women could find shelter and be safe with perfect strangers, and so on. What both these films offered us was an overview of the world through a feminine lens, where friends can become family and complications can be resolved with humor, empathy, and the recognition that all of us have more in common than differences that separate us. Their cinema was a cinema of hope, of possibilities, of women at the center of narratives and not at the sidelines. Both films celebrated ordinary women, and even Stree too, which had far too many commercial tropes, including a rather crass item number, had something important to say. Stree too made space for angry women in Hindi cinema. There was also a little subversive commentary about a patriarchal influencer who attacks modern women and is taking gender equations backwards by a few hundred years. And a tongue-in-cheek reminder to a wolf, "Tu bhediya hai, animal mat ban." Don't also miss the spectacle of women in red walking with diyas in a scene that references the Jauhar sequence from Bhansali's Padmavat. Only here, they don't emulate themselves, and instead, a monster whose influence has kept them trapped is thrown into fuming lava by an enraged Stree out for revenge. Its idea that masculine and feminine energies must come together as equals to conquer patriarchy is timely. It's a bit odd, though, that a man is chosen to set a tortured spirit free. However, the fact that he is far from macho and instead reminds one of Kamala Bhasin's definition of healthy masculinity, जो प्यार की ताकत को समझे, ताकत को प्यार न समझे, makes the ending palatable. That a film with a battle sequence glorifying female anger has smashed the box office made me smile. Especially in a year where every third news report is about assault, rape, or the murder of a woman, a girl, or a girl child.
The Way We Were, where we revisit the past to understand how the ebb and flow of popular culture shapes the way we are. Only on The Podcaster.